Some of the rarest creatures on Earth are fading from existence because of one simple problem. They won't breed.
The adult male generally tries to kill the female.
That first year, there were no births. We had no idea just of their basic biology.
But when nature fails, science steps in.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful.
In the fight for survival, these animals have a critical ally.
It's a challenge, I think, and we like challenges in science.
Detective, matchmaker, surgeon. Dr. JoGayle Howard is overturning the idea that endangered always leads to extinct.
You're bringing them back to life with that frozen sperm, and so their genes live on.
Now she's training an entire generation, an army of reproductive specialists who will secure the future for endangered species. At the Smithsonian's National Zoo in Washington, D.C., you can find 400 species from around the globe. But behind the scenes, the zoo has another mission: to make babies. Species like the giant panda, teetering on the brink of extinction, often can't reproduce on their own.
Of course, you want natural breeding. Everybody wanted the natural breeding. But when our male kind of failed to naturally breed, we just knew it wasn't going to happen. We were ready as a backup to do artificial insemination.
Painstaking research had revealed that female pandas are only fertile once a year for a mere 48 hours. Mei Xiang, the zoo's female, is an especially difficult case. Her tiny window of time is unpredictable, jumping around the calendar from year to year. To identify the right moment to inseminate, Dr. JoGayle Howard first had to examine Mei's behavior and hormone levels for telltale clues. This team is accustomed to assembling on a moment's notice. For the actual insemination, JoGayle is the first in the world to use a unique laparoscopic instrument to insert sperm from the zoo's male panda, Tian Tian, directly into Mei Xiang's uterus.
It's intense anytime you work on giant pandas. You know, it's world news.
In July of 2005, Tai Shan, nicknamed Butterstick, became the first healthy giant panda ever born at the National Zoo.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Today, JoGayle's pioneering techniques are used to breed giant pandas in their native China and around the world, resulting in 10 times more births every year. But there are still many mysteries about panda reproduction.
So I wonder if she'll come into estrus in January this year.
That's the big question.
And pandas are just one of the species JoGayle is out to save. Technically, she's a theriogenologist, an expert on fertility and reproduction. She's been the National Zoo's matchmaker for 30 years.
National Zoo was about the only place back then that you could come and have a training program in reproduction. And I realized that this is what I wanted to do. It's so cute.
3 decades ago, even with a quarter of the world's mammal species facing extinction, the science of animal reproduction was stuck in the Dark Ages.
Little was known about these species. And I remember very vividly that at that time, a zoo would put a male and female together on exhibit, and if they didn't breed, get rid of him, get another male in.
But some endangered populations are so far gone. That kind of approach is a recipe for doom.
I was shocked at the level of human reproductive medicine had come. We were nowhere near that in wildlife.
Today, it's a different story. At the National Zoo's Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute in Front Royal, Virginia, JoGayle and a staff of 50 are applying the wonders of human reproductive science to the most exotic of animal species.
She's gotten the best technologies, the best collaborators, the best surgical support that there is available for anybody, including humans. And she's applied that to this important problem of attempting to rescue, really at the 11th hour, many species that are on their way out.
One of her first challenges was the black-footed ferret. These tough little creatures were once a top predator on America's Great Plains, living in burrows and dining on prairie dogs, until habitat loss sent the population into a tailspin. In 1974, they were declared extinct. Years later, on the outskirts of Yellowstone Park, a miraculous discovery.
In 1981, a ranch dog up in Wyoming found a black-footed ferret. And that pretty much turned the conservation world upside down. You know, we have the species that was thought to be extinct, and now, boom, they're back. So what do?
In all, 18 survivors were found and brought to a captive breeding facility in Wyoming.
Everyone, of course, got excited. We found this population, but it was in a crisis. We had a lot of expertise at the National Zoo in breeding carnivores, and so fortunately we were asked to become very involved in the breeding program.
But black-footed ferret reproduction was uncharted territory.
And in that first year, there were no births. And we also kind of freaked because we had no idea just of their basic biology.
Oddly, domesticated ferrets offered few clues to the mysterious biology of their wild relatives.
We knew that the lifespan wasn't very long, and they tend to be fertile only for the first 3 years of their life. And so you don't have a lot of chances to breed these guys, and it was a lot of trial and error.
Bit by bit, they put the puzzle together.
We learned fast and learned that they only come in and heat in the spring. They only get a chance to breed usually once, and then they have the litters. It's a very short pregnancy, only 42 days.
But the biggest challenge, with only 18 survivors, was how to avoid the dangers of inbreeding.
When you have a small population like this, you need everyone breeding, all the genes represented equally to help maintain the genetic diversity and not to lose so much genetic diversity.
The general concept of avoiding inbreeding is done specifically to diminish the chance of congenital or reproductive abnormalities. Club foots or cross-eyedness in white tigers and other kinds of things.
To escape that fate, the ferrets need genetic variation. Careful detective work identified a problem.
When we looked through the pedigree, it was too few males doing a lot of the breeding. Some were aggressive, some just couldn't figure out which end to breed the female. So we thought those animals are so valuable, then we could use artificial insemination to black-footed ferrets.
At the time, AI was just being perfected in human fertility treatment. The idea of using it for ferrets seemed like something out of science fiction, but it worked. At last, the first brood of black-footed ferrets was born. And subsequent generations have maintained as much genetic variation as those 18 original survivors allowed. Today, JoGayle is thawing genetically valuable 13-year-old semen to artificially inseminate a 4-year-old female.
31197, and it may say test on it.
Perfecting this freezing technique was a breakthrough in saving the species.
Even just 1 or 2 kids born from this frozen semen, we can increase the gene diversity of the entire black-footed ferret population, and that's pretty cool.
This is the hopeful mother-to-be, Choopy.
Should have 6 pellets in there.
Although near the end of her fertile years, any kits produced from Choopy and this sperm donor would bolster the gene pool, so it's worth a try. Even after decades, frozen sperm can be brought back. In ferret years, that's the equivalent of a modern woman conceiving a child with Thomas Jefferson's sperm.
It's very powerful when you take, that frozen sperm that was frozen 10 and 20 years ago. Those animals are gone and dead, but yet you're bringing them back to life with that frozen sperm, and so their genes live on long after their deaths. I'd say that looks good.
But the thawed semen samples vary in their quality. JoGayle needs to make sure that there's a high enough concentration of sperm.
Oh, we have some moving.
They also analyze the morphology, the amount of active sperm versus dead sperm.
Let's go 2.5 for now. And that's say...
It only takes one sperm cell to fertilize an egg. But the more robust an army JoGayle can muster, the greater the chances for a pregnancy.
It's not the best I've ever seen, but... And these may warm up too, because right now it's a pretty good count.
Once she's identified the best sample, a centrifuge washes away any dead or defective cells.
We'll go for 6 minutes. 1, 2, 5, and start. And pray.
Now it's time to prep Chupi.
Are you done with the P20?
Any surgical procedure is a calculated risk. But here, in this high-tech operating room, Chupi's well-being is top priority.
Maybe try and go this way right there. Yeah, all right, great.
She's 4?
4 years old, uh-huh.
JoGayle will use another technique borrowed from human medicine. Laparoscopy, also known as keyhole surgery. It only requires 2 small incisions, one for the surgical instrument
Ready to tilt her?
and one for a tiny camera.
We started by inseminating a domestic ferret like you would do a dog, just a vaginal insemination, not surgical like we did today. And we didn't get any pregnancies. And so that's when we developed the laparoscopic insemination technique. We learned that we could get about 70% pregnancy with the laparoscopic method by putting sperm in the uterus. And, you know, we never went back.
As she deftly navigates the ferret's tiny organs, the camera acts as JoGayle's eyes on the inside.
Catheters, I'm just at the really wrong angle.
It's a delicate procedure, zeroing in on a uterus the size of a pencil eraser inside a patient that only weighs 2 pounds.
I'm losing insufflation is why you can't see on the monitor. Okay, that looks good.
JoGayle has found her target. Now, the moment of truth. She injects the semen.
Beautiful.
She's put everything in the right place at the right time. The rest is up to Mother Nature.
The female we did today was 4 years old, and that's the cusp. I mean, they have great fertility year 1, 2, and 3, but on year 4, the reproductive success goes down. But because she was so valuable, it was worth trying her with this old semen because it's just such a good genetic match.
Whether or not Chupi conceives, they had to try. Their persistence is bringing the black-footed ferret back from the brink. In the mysterious world of endangered species, JoGayle Howard is a reproductive sleuth. One of her toughest cases is a rare cat, the clouded leopard.
It's interesting to me that we're still learning every day about clouded leopards.
What are you doing?
We really don't know their behavior at all. It's a challenge, I think, and we like challenges in science.
Hi, Luke.
Beautiful but deadly, cloudids are serious predators. For their size, they have the largest, sharpest teeth of the big cats, but they still can't protect themselves from poachers. Their primary habitat, in the jungles of Asia, is also dwindling. But they're so reclusive, it's impossible to know how many still exist in the wild. The classification endangered could be an understatement.
What you doing?
JoGayle is part of a global effort to save the species by breeding clouded leopards in captivity.
This is a very interesting pair. They have bred many times, and she has not gotten pregnant, and we don't know why.
The clouded leopards have proved to be probably one of the most difficult cat species to deal with because they were so difficult to breed in captivity.
This pair is one of a rare few that can live together in harmony. But the effort to produce clouded leopard young has a darker side.
Most of the cats you can introduce as adults. When the female's in heat, you introduce the male. The cats breed and you get babies. With the clouded leopards, if you try to do that with adults, the adult male generally tries to kill the female.
This video from 2003 shows just how quickly a male can turn on its partner.
It is 10:15, and they've been together since 7 a.m.
Come on, fighting.
In an instant, any hope of breeding sabotaged by a vicious attack. Incredibly, this female survived her attack. Others have lost limbs or been slaughtered outright. It's unlikely that they behave this way in the wild, but they are skittish animals, and life in captivity can sometimes make them downright neurotic.
Obviously a huge problem. It doesn't make sense for an animal to even do that if they need to reproduce. We really don't have a handle of why it happens.
With so few cloudeds left in the world, it's a costly behavioral quirk. JoGayle had hoped to find a workaround in the operating room.
So we wanted to see, if we can breed them artificially and do insemination.
But the leopard's reproductive system was no easier to tame.
The clouded leopards were always the outlier, and we learned their reproduction is not even like a domestic cat and like a cheetah. They almost more like a dog.
It has not been easy. Through artificial insemination, we've had one litter born. That was about 15, 16 years ago now, somewhere in that range.
Striking out on high-tech and old-fashioned breeding left them with few options.
People like JoGayle, they just keep working and working and working, and there's always that challenge.
The discovery of some wild-born leopards in Thailand raised the stakes. About 200 miles northeast of Bangkok is the Khao Keo Zoo. Home to rare creatures rescued from animal traffickers and poachers, this zoo represents a goldmine of untapped clouded leopard genes.
We looked up and there were 27 very valuable clouded leopards, and 24 of those were wild caught. Those are the most genetically valuable animals in the world and very different than the genetic diversity that we had in North America.
Stirring this DNA into the captive population's gene pool is the last best hope for the future of the species. But how to breed them? One idea was to try to prevent attacks by extending the courtship period.
It was a long road to try to pair up these animals safely, and it literally meant that we started with a little introduction between a male and a female. If they didn't hurt each other in 10 minutes, then we did it again the next day in 15 minutes.
We had them next to each other for a long time, and then we finally just decided, okay, it's time, and we just opened the gate, and from day one, they've been a great pair.
But this kind of slow-motion courtship doesn't always work, and it wastes valuable breeding time. Then the light bulb came on for JoGayle. Adult clouded leopards can't accept new mates. But what if they started much, much younger?
If you look at some of the pairs all over the world, you'll see some brother-sister mating. Well, that helped me figure out that, maybe this is puberty related, and if they get together young, especially before they go through puberty, either one of them, maybe they're bonded at that point. And it was a secret.
Sometimes all it takes is one really good idea.
You keep trying until something works. And we're finally getting cubs all over the world in clouded leopards. So we're very excited about that.
These cute cubs and their offspring will ensure the future of clouded leopards. Among the newest generation at the National Zoo are brothers, Chiwit and Tewada. These sweethearts were born on Valentine's Day.
They're very inquisitive, very much the young kittens.
The moment a cub is born, the global search is on for a mate.
We're constantly matchmaking, literally, and knowing, if we have a male born next year, where is it going to go? And which zoo is it going to go to? Are we going to keep it?
In just a few months, both brothers will leave here for arranged marriages that will help sustain the species. The leopard cubs aren't the only zoo youngsters who will be moving up and out soon.
Now let's see what these guys look like. All right, I'm going to pull the top. She's gonna run in. That worked good.
Oh, wow. It's incredible to see this large a litter.
This has been a banner year for ferrets. 12 litters, 50 kits, and all but one survived.
Little miniature versions of real ferrets.
A miraculous feat, considering that just 3 decades ago, only 18 of these animals existed on Earth.
Usually with 18 individuals, the fate of a species is not too optimistic. But it is a species that can be recovered.
This one, right there.
With the ferret program, we not only can produce animals in captivity, but since 1991, we've been able to release animals back within their historic range.
He's going to use the catch cage, Tom.
These black-footed ferrets have a shot at freedom few endangered species ever get. Reintroduction into the wild. Though just 2% of America's prairie land survives, the ferrets can help restore this unique ecosystem by reclaiming their place in the cycle of life as a top predator keeping prairie dogs in check.
Got one here. Might be lucky.
Being able to save a high-level carnivore like the black-footed ferret, it's saving a whole ecosystem.
These ferrets are packing up and moving out to the Colorado prairie. But who goes and who stays is carefully orchestrated. Since they are so genetically similar, they all look nearly alike. The only way to tell them apart for sure is to check a tiny transponder chip implanted under each animal's fur.
Give me the last 3 digits. That's this one.
Each individual is present and accounted for. These ferrets and JoGayle's team at the National Zoo represent only a portion of a much bigger plan coordinating their travel and release.
We produce them, we have so many kits a year, so it's very complicated who gets ferrets and how many. The more we produce, the more goes for reintroduction. And everyone else left is back in the program for breeding next year or get moved to another zoo so we don't have the same animals every year.
These little guys look much cuter than they smell. Black-footed ferrets secrete a defensive musk, a pungent odor that makes it a little like driving halfway across the country with a skunk.
It's another day in heaven.
This facility on the lonely plains outside Fort Collins, Colorado, is ground zero for black-footed ferret reintroduction.
We're the hub of all activities. We're the largest captive breeding facility. We produce the most number of kits, and we prepare those kits for reintroduction by placing them in outdoor pens, which is kind of that halfway point between captivity and the wild.
Every kit that was born in the breeding program all over the United States and Canada would go to boot camp basically and have this preconditioning period and then go for reintroduction.
They all arrive here at the Ferret Center and they receive a vaccine and a transponder chip.
JoGayle's ferret kits are carefully prepped for the rigors of life in the wild.
We're anesthetizing these guys to process them, which means we're going to give them their second vaccines, plague vaccine, which we get from the U.S. Army, canine distemper vaccine, and if needed, they'll get rabies vaccine as well. We use isoflurane, which is a very common anesthetic agent used in animals. It's a very safe anesthetic. They go to sleep within a few minutes and they wake up within a few minutes. We're going to put in a second transponder for identification, which is like a microchip.
Out in the wild, researchers will be able to track individuals using these same transponders. It's the best way to figure out who's adapting, who's had babies, and who's fallen prey to disease or predators.
One of the biggest obstacles to ferret recovery is disease. Sylvatic plague is a disease, it's a bacteria that's harbored in the gut of fleas. Now plague, it's, people think of the Middle Ages and Black Death and, pretty much wiping out most of mankind. Same disease. Right now, every single ferret that goes out for reintroduction and that stays back in captivity gets vaccinated with the plague vaccine.
During the Middle Ages, plague-infested corpses were thrown over castle walls to spread disease. The U.S. Army developed this vaccine as an insurance policy against bioterrorism. JoGayle and her team have cracked the secrets of ferret reproduction and given them a fighting chance against plague. But for them to truly have an edge in the wild, one last puzzle piece had to slide into place.
One finding that was just changed everything, especially the way we introduce them, is that we found out if the kids born that year can experience basically a hole in the ground. If they can understand what a burrow system is, they would have something like 10-fold increase in survival if they had been trained or preconditioned in this burrow system before they went for reintroduction.
Nature is no picnic, at least if you're a prairie dog. Ferrets are both squatters and killers. Wild ferrets use prairie dog burrows as their hunting ground and their shelter from harsh weather and predators. Prairie dogs sustain them in every way, including as food. For captive-born ferrets, their new lifestyle can take some getting used to, so each animal spends 30 days in basic training, also known as preconditioning.
And we define that as placing captive-born animals into pens which have prairie dog burrows, whether they be natural or artificial, and offering them live prey. For the ferret, it comes down to prairie dogs. That's what they need to survive. Prairie dog makes up over 90% of the ferret's diet, and the ferret, being a nocturnal solitary carnivore, which does not hibernate, needs those burrows to live in. Our goal isn't just to breed ferrets and produce them in captivity and just dump them out on the prairie and wish them well. We want to make sure that we're producing the highest quality animal we can and giving it the best shot of survival.
Given a chance, instinct will take over. But this dress rehearsal fine-tunes those survival skills. Having spent all of their short lives in cages, this little patch of prairie is like a new planet, complete with alien life forms. Until now, the ferrets have had room service, but before one can be released into the wild, it has to be able to feed itself. That entails taking down an animal bigger than it is. A bit of a daunting task.
So it does take that adjustment period of them kind of checking things out and kind of approaching a prairie dog and backing up and kind of doing their little ferret dance that they love to do.
Wild black-footed ferrets will sneak into a prairie dog's burrow at night, grab a sleeping animal by the throat, and quickly suffocate it. Some ferrets live in their enclosures with a prairie dog for weeks before they realize they are supposed to eat it. Even the most timid usually figure it out in a month's time. A wild black-footed ferret consumes about 100 prairie dogs in a year. This one is about to taste his first kill. They are fast learners and the lead characters in a bona fide conservation success story.
Our center here is one piece of the ferret recovery puzzle. The ferret is one piece of the prairie ecosystem. The prairie ecosystem is one part of a much larger planetary environment.
The 1,000 black-footed ferrets roaming freely in the wild today are part of JoGayle's legacy. If the population reaches 1,500, their status will be downgraded from endangered to threatened, and they someday may become a self-sustaining species once again.
There's only 3 ferret species in the world total, and they're unique to North America. It's the only ferret we have.
When JoGayle Howard first tackled wildlife reproduction 30 years ago, she and her colleagues were pioneers in a new land. They set out ready to try anything. Cribbing from animal behavior studies, biology, and fertility science, they created an entirely new discipline.
When I started, we were still developing the field, really, the tools and what we were able to offer. It was a few of us, and we did everything together, and that's just the way we learned the best.
We were working in the dark before, but now we're actually able to translate a lot of the designs that are meant for human medicine into a different kind of application.
The challenge today is all about passing that expertise on to the next generation.
One of our goals here is to basically replace ourselves. We want to train ourselves right out of a job.
And so here is a sample that we used. It's a frozen thawed sample, so we're going to see. Over the years, we've probably had about 4,000 people have come through here and trained who are now leaders in conservation in the countries that they come from.
We are particularly excited about the younger generation. Because there's so much interest in endangered species, we really have the pick of some of the best young minds in the business.
Very hard to see if it was a cat sample, where it's got the
Adrienne Crozier is just one of the talented scientists following in JoGayle's footsteps.
She has taught me so much about just basic biology of cats. Everything from semen evaluation and artificial insemination.
It's starting to kind of...
Today, they're working together to help save a species with a notoriously sketchy gene pool. The cheetah. Cheetahs nearly went extinct at the end of the last ice age. With only a few animals left on Earth to carry on the species, these majestic cats are genetic weaklings and reproductively challenged.
One of JoGayle's first big accomplishments was the ability to actually produce cheetahs consistently using artificial insemination. That was really the first success, using frozen sperm from an endangered species, and JoGayle was really the person that accomplished that.
Adrienne spent years collecting and freezing wild cheetah semen in Namibia. Semen JoGayle then used to produce a record number of genetically valuable cubs in the U.S.
To date, there have been 13 litters of cheetahs produced by artificial insemination, either using fresh sperm or thawed sperm, including sperm that's been imported from Africa.
But cheetahs are still in crisis. Only about 9,000 exist in the wild, so the pressure is on for captive breeding programs. In North America, there are fewer than 250 animals in the program.
40% or so of those are aged, and we feel probably we won't have luck reproducing them naturally. So that's kind of a target population for the assisted reproductive work, those older females especially.
Today's patient is a 4-year-old named Olivia. This procedure actually began weeks ago with hormone shots to coax her reproductive system into action. A technique borrowed from human fertility treatment and one that requires precision timing.
If I want to bring a cheetah into estrus, the timing is very critical, down to the 30 minutes even, when the injections are given, when we expect her to ovulate, when to do the insemination. If we anesthetize her at the wrong time, she may not ovulate. It just takes a lot of years of research to put it together.
Now they've got to precisely choreograph the other half of this high-tech mating dance. 2 brothers have been carefully chosen as partners for Olivia. A 2-year-old named Saurus goes first. His brother is a backup. Either would create a cub genetically unique enough to help their species as a whole.
The genetic match is very good, and as far as either one of their genetics being represented in the population, they haven't been yet. So if either of them produced offspring, that would be wonderful.
Left side.
But cheetahs have a strike against them when it comes to reproduction. Due to thousands of years of inbreeding, cheetah sperm is not high-quality stuff. There's about a 70% rate of abnormal and deformed cells.
It's one of the kind of classic signs we now know for inbreeding and lack of genetic diversity is it just so happens that the carnivores have a lot of male problems.
That means they have to carefully check each sample. Just like the thawed ferret sperm, they look for high concentration and a healthy amount of movement.
Oh wow, I think I'd give this only about 30% motility. It's not good. The semen is the key, and so it's got to, be motile. It's got to have enough sperm to get the job done, and then, it's got to live. It's got to maintain that motility.
To get that quality, the team will need to collect several samples from Saurus. But each time they get more sperm, it adds another delay, and time is running out.
Oh, it looks good. All right, a little bit better concentration, better status for sure.
Yep. You see?
This second sample might be the one for Olivia.
Right, well, this doesn't look bad.
But because they are introducing it directly into the uterus, the semen has to be cleaned first.
We can't put whole semen in the female because there's a lot of bacteria in the semen and it would cause a uterine infection.
Cleaning fragile sperm is a risky process.
It's not good.
And this time, the sample doesn't survive.
What we have here is not going to do it. Was looking really good and then crashed. So sometimes it's not unusual that we can, get a good sample from a male and then it just crashes. Now, lots of pieces to the puzzle have to work out.
It's on to Plan B. Saurus's brother, Caprivi. As cheetahs from the same litter, their genes are incredibly similar. But will Caprivi's sperm show better quality than Saurus's?
There's not a lot here. All right. pH 9 on that one?
Yeah.
This is about what number 1 was also. I gave it a 3.
Caprivi's got issues with quality and quantity.
Very little in this. Very little. No, almost no sperm. I mean, the second was better than the first one. Third vial had no sperm in it.
Holy crap.
They're almost out of time. If they can't get a usable sperm sample from Caprivi soon, they could miss Olivia's window of fertility and blow their chances of a conception. Adrian's got one last sample.
Okay.
Okay, we're running out of time.
Okay, fine.
Because it's almost 2, and it's going to take us at least a half an hour to get her.
Okay. Look at this. It looks great. It's the best sample we've had.
We're really happy with the concentration and the motility of the cells and how they were moving forward.
Now that they've got good sperm, JoGayle and Adrian turn their focus back to Olivia.
Now, the next hurdle will be to see how her ovaries look and see if she's ovulated.
The race is on to get the surgery underway. They'll use the same keyhole method they used to inseminate Chupi, the black-footed ferret. This time, JoGayle is handing the reins, or in this case, the laparoscope, over to Adrian. A cheetah uterus offers more maneuvering room than that of a tiny ferret, but the margin of error remains very slim.
Yeah, go ahead and put. That's all right.
Yeah.
So at least we know there's 2 ovulations on this side, which is great.
These red spots are ovulation sites from which an egg was released, each representing a potential life.
Nice.
4 by 2.
4 wide, 2 tall.
Cheetahs normally have litters of 2 to 5 cubs.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful.
1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 or 5, huh? Okay, if this is the whole thing on the ovary, I go 8 length.
It looks like up to 10 eggs have been released. Olivia could be the next octomom.
Okay, that looks great. I'd say get sperm.
The sample holds about 14 million sperm. But even that may not be enough.
Just hold tight. Okay, coming out with needle. Tubing going in, hopefully. I think you're just on the edge. Inseminating, everything looks good.
Oh, coming back up.
That's okay, yeah. It's okay.
It is a little nerve-wracking, yeah, because there's a lot on the line, and you know, you don't want to mess up the procedure. You want to make sure it goes smoothly, and
we can figure out what all this is.
There's been so much work and effort that's gone into it up to that point that you want the final step to be perfect as well.
I really want Adrian to be able to do everything I do. I'm very happy to pass on that knowledge to the next generation.
This elaborate dance, 3 cheetahs, 2 surgeons, and only moments to spare, will hopefully produce a cub, or more. JoGayle is the godmother of generations of endangered animals that have gotten their start right here.
I don't think we will ever find anyone else in this field that has the same passion and dedication and devotion. I am very grateful that our careers have overlapped.
Just down the hall in the vet hospital, the Conservation Biology Institute's hottest new clouded leopard couple. Tewada, one of the brothers born on Valentine's Day, and his new mate, Motzi, a 5-month-old from the Nashville Zoo.
Oh, good boy. He's a big baby, I think, and she's kind of a bully. She beats him up, but she does it secretly, so she sneaks up behind him and definitely encourages most of their play behavior, their wrestling and stuff. But they kind of play like a cat and mouse game back and forth, and it's pretty funny. Yeah, you're a good boy. Yeah.
This pair has been hand-raised, bottle-fed from birth.
It's, of course, a lot of hands-on, a lot of time-consuming, hand-rearing, but these animals are so calm and they're so just not scared of anything. I mean, they're not stressful, to noises and trucks and, people especially.
Hand-rearing is a necessity because of one more unfortunate clouded leopard quirk. Stressed-out mothers are known to kill their newborn cubs.
If we were fortunate to have any litters born, we wanted to make sure they were going to survive.
Taking baby cloudids from their mother keeps them safe, but the hope is that when calm, hand-reared cats have their own cubs, they'll be able to raise them by themselves.
Animals that we hand rear are just so totally different than the ones that are mother reared. They come out, they're very social, they will greet you in the morning.
The pair has been together for 4 months, but today is really the start of their lives together. They are leaving the National Zoo to join a breeding program in the United Kingdom.
Their crates have been in with them for a few weeks now, so hopefully they're adjusted to being in them and around them, and it smells like them now, so they'll be comfortable.
There you go, good boy. That's it.
Strong genetic diversity is crucial to species survival. Tewada and Motsi will bring their unique genetics to the Howlett's Wild Animal Park in Kent, England.
Yeah, obviously, to collaborate between the two of us is great news because in the past we've always found it difficult to find new blood from other collections because obviously we've bred so many cats in the past and sent them out to other zoos, so they're all related to the British stock. So collaborating with the Americans is ideal for us and for them, of course. So the only thing I can benefit is the clouded leopard.
This kind of international collaboration is a hallmark of JoGayle's career and the philosophy of the National Zoo.
We wanted to reach out to anyone else that's breeding a lot of clouded leopards and Howletts. They have a long history of clouded leopards. They have a good track record.
After a long journey and a lot of red tape, they finally roll up to the gates of Howlett's.
Watch your knuckles. Watch your knuckles, listen. Yeah, go for it, yeah. And they've had a long journey, a long day. And yeah, I mean, but absolutely stunning little cats. You know, really chuffed that they've turned up in excellent condition and very talkative, which is a good thing. You know, they don't look to be aggressive. So all in all, yeah, very good.
International exchanges like the one in the United Kingdom are just part of JoGayle's goal of saving the clouded leopard. Another key component will be back in Front Royal, Virginia, a new state-of-the-art facility for the breeding program.
We're actually on a very fast track of building the facility. We have animals that need to get housing now.
It's a $1 million dream that's nowhere near fully funded, but it will be a bricks-and-mortar testament to everything JoGayle has learned about clouded leopards.
We know from experience now that they love tall climbing structures, or tall enclosures. We know that lowers their stress level, so we're finally gonna give these cats what they deserve and what makes them happy.
We are rewriting the book on, what's it gonna take to breed clouded leopards, and I'm just glad to be part of it. A lot of people are depressed about where we are in conservation, and I have hope. I really think we have a lot to offer.
I think it does come down to the individual, and individuals can make a difference. You look at the work that JoGayle's done, pretty much single-handedly, producing hundreds of kits through artificial insemination.
There's no going back from extinction, but as long as there's life, there's hope. Stalking prairie dogs on the American plains, scrambling up trees at zoos around the world, or having a lazy bamboo brunch. New life is what JoGayle's work is all about. She's attacked challenges from every angle and cracked the toughest reproductive cases. And she started a movement, a team of talented scientists who will take her hard-won knowledge and run with it, fighting extinction one litter at a time.
I always had the philosophy that, anything is achievable if you work hard enough, if you go for it.